Me and James, we just can't win alone. That's why basketball is played 5-on-5. So, we just need everybody to just, try to keep finding ways to get better, and, we'll be fine.
Joel Embiid and James Harden cannot rise to the occasion. My name is Rotimi, and I love talking all things basketball. I love basketball, and I hope one day that you can share that same love for basketball as I do. Going into this series, we thought, there's a chance that the 76ers can make it. Joel Embiid has just won the MVP, and, he seemed like a dominant force that was never going to be stopped. So at the beginning of the series, Joel Embiid was actually injured, unfortunately due to a previous game, and so he missed Game 1 and Game 2. Now, Game 1, James Harden turns up 40 points. They win that game. Game 2, they lost that game. James Harden suddenly disappeared. Game 3 rolls around, and James Harden makes 3 shots. Joel Embiid has a 30-point game because he's back now, and they still lose. In Game 4, James Harden shows up, 42 points. He shows that he's the guy. Embiid had 34. They win that game. Game 5 rolls around. Harden's gone missing again. So Tyrese Maxey had to step up. They win that game. Game 6, James Harden makes 4 shots. 4 shots. They lost that game. And in the finale of the Game 7, the decider, the knockout game, James Harden disappears and scores 9 points. The MVP only made 5 baskets. He scores 15 points. Look who shows up. Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum scores 51 points. And he had so many struggles earlier on in that series. I don't think many people thought that he was going to be able to really show up like he did. Jayson Tatum had a hell of a game. Jayson Tatum had some previous shooting struggles, notably Game 4, where he went 0 from 9 in the first half. And this is someone who considers himself to be a scorer, just saying. So he's at least got to make 1 or 2 buckets, so that doesn't occur. But then we got to this series, and when it came down to the crunch time, he made 6 out of 10 of his threes. He shot 60% overall from the field. Throughout the series, he wasn't even shooting that well. He shot 46% and 31% from the 3-point line. He was not actually as amazing for his team on the shooting and offensive end as we know him to be, at least. So it was great to see him show up in the closing moments. The 76ers. Okay, let's start here. First of all, the MVP, Joel Embiid. I have no idea what's up with that guy. So Joel Embiid has excuses every single year, and this year his excuse was the worst, stating that, it can't just be him and James Harden. He always asks for more help, whether it's injuries or whatever it is. No one really knows what's actually going on with Joel Embiid, other than the fact that I just don't think he's ready for the occasion. He cannot rise to the occasion. You know what? They got him help. So last year he asked for help. They got him help. And guess what? He didn't show up. Not the help. He didn't show up. So he actually averaged 25 points, 9 rebounds. But when it actually came to it, he never showed up. To be honest, he was actually never my MVP. The league chose him as the MVP, but we are actually talking about a guy that has fumbled year after year. I don't even think the MVP should be the thing in his mind right now. I think just winning a playoff game and showing up to the playoff games should be what's on his mind, because he lost his team this game. He only scored 15 points this game. And this is the MVP. This is the person that was one of the best scorers, if not the best scorer in the league. He just couldn't hit a lick. And you know what? Joe Mazzulla made some great adjustments. I'll give it to the coach of the Boston Celtics. Al Horford was actually stuck guarding him. And anytime Joel Embiid was going to get into the key or the paint, it didn't matter. There was going to be help from Robert Williams, who was actually guarding and leaving a man in the corner for an open 3-point shot. But guess what? Joel Embiid is just not a great passer. He's not a great passer, so it was a great adjustment, understanding the weaknesses of Joel Embiid and kind of forcing him into a position that he's not quite used to. The 76ers coach, Doc Rivers, now I'm going to keep it short. First of all, Doc Rivers played the zone against a team that were second in 3-point makes in the league. The best way to get out of a zone defense is to shoot the ball. So why would you set up a zone against a team that is good at shooting the ball? He couldn't even coach his team to space the court correctly for when Joel Embiid goes into the post, so he can at least find an open pass. Doc Rivers has been fired, so we don't need to talk about him anymore. That tells you enough. Now, I'm convinced that James Harden's pranking us. I'm seriously convinced. Some nights, he looks like a top 3-point guard in the league. Other nights, he looks like a bench player. He had 2 40-point games this series. There were 4 games where he couldn't score 20 points. And then in the knockout game, the closeout game, this man only scored 9 points. I'll tell you what's even more shocking. About 4 years ago now, James Harden was actually the best scorer in the NBA. I guess times have changed. He's not that guy, but 9 points, and you're meant to be the second option. We got to ask ourselves some questions now, right? And not only that, but James Harden's not known for playing defense. So if James Harden doesn't score the ball, then he's useless to the team on the other end. In my opinion, when you're a superstar, you've got to find a way to affect the game in more than one area, especially when one area is not working. You need to find, how can I affect the game? Is it going to be me defending? Is it going to be me playing, getting rebound? I think we've seen James Harden fumble so many times at this point, where I don't even think we can even trust James Harden in a playoff situation and a closing game, because we just don't believe he's going to be able to deliver for us. He hasn't actually shown us that he can. For the role players, I mean, look, Tyrese Maxey, you tried. There's very little you can do. You weren't meant to be in a situation to will your team to the win. Tobias Harris, you tried. You're not meant to be the person to do it. I tell you what, PJ Tucker was trying to. That man is a winner. He's a winner, and all he wants to do is play defense and shoot threes. They had him looking like a scorer. They had him looking like a scorer in the Game 7, and that's not his job. All I can say is Joel Embiid and James Harden, they needed to step up, and they ran away from the light. They didn't like the spotlight, and Game 7, Joel Embiid blamed everyone else pretty much. The Celtics though, Jaylen Brown, shout out to Jaylen Brown. He averaged 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and he did it on 55% shooting. He made 55% of his shots. I trust that man all the time. And when he plays defense as well, he's a locker. Actually, I found out 4 of the starters for the Boston Celtics found themselves ranking in top 30 in the players in the playoffs. And when it comes to defensive win shares is basically how much credit is given to a certain player when they win the ball on defense, and it's basically over 100 possessions. So that tells you a lot already. The Boston Celtics were built and ready to play defense against any other team in the East. One of my favorite things about Jaylen Brown is he understands the assignment. His job is to score, and it's like you just pass the ball to him, and he literally just goes running to the hoop because he knows there's only one thing for him to do, and it's score. And I appreciate that so much from a player, because we got that from him consistently on a nightly basis. He was giving us 20 points, and we didn't need him to do any more. We just needed him to keep the Boston Celtics in the game, and he kept doing that. He literally had his foot on full throttle the whole game, and I appreciate that from any player that can give it their all. But Jayson Tatum that boy is the definition of a superstar. There were multiple moments throughout this series where Jayson Tatum didn't shoot very well. It literally had peaks and troughs. It didn't matter because he was affecting the team on the defensive end. He averaged a steal and a block. He was grabbing rebounds. He averaged 11 rebounds. We're talking about a player that found a way to affect the game without scoring. And he is a scorer, right? He is a scorer. So we look at him and we say, you didn't score. But he averaged 29 points in the playoff series. He was doing everything he possibly could to make sure that his team was staying in the game, even though he wasn't shooting the ball very well. Shout out to Al Horford. Al Horford is a veteran in this game that just knows what to do. He played defense and played the defense extremely well against Joel Embiid. Of course, with the help side of Robert Williams. Shout out to Marcus Smart as well, who I think has come a long way as a player. We used to just see him as a defender that couldn't shoot. Then he became a defender that could shoot, and now we see him running the offense. And he did that very well, averaging about 6 assists and I think 14 points a game, maybe 16 points a game actually. Shout out to Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon is a solid piece. I was so happy when they signed him last year. He's the sort of player that you like. He's consistent again. He's consistent. You know what you're gonna get out of him. And he shot 50%. He shot 50% from 3-point. To be considered a good 3-point shooter in this league, you only need to shoot 40%. So if you're shooting and you're hitting 50% of your shots, you are one of the best shooters in the league. And he did that throughout this whole series. And that is partly why the Boston Celtics were so hard to guard. And again, why would Doc Rivers set up a zone? Now, I think one thing to definitely remember here is the Sixers actually only had a chance if Joel Embiid and Harden showed up. I think James Harden's going to leave in the offseason. Doc Rivers, after being fired, I don't think there's any reason for James Harden to really be there anymore. I think one of the reasons he was there was because Doc Rivers was there. James Harden, I think is running away. We've seen him in too many teams, and we've seen him on 3 different teams in the last 4 years. He just continues to run. So let's see where he's going to run to next. Joel Embiid has time to grow. I lied. Joel Embiid needs to figure it out. He needs to find a way to deal with the pressure in the playoffs, and he needs to stop making excuses. He needs to take ownership, and he needs to deliver, because it's getting embarrassing now. You just won your MVP after crying about not getting it last year. You're not showing anyone that you are the best player in there. What will next season look like for the Sixers if James Harden leaves and there's no Doc Rivers? I know there's some new coaches in the market, so that could also change things. But it'll be very interesting to see what's next for the Sixers. The Boston Celtics have got a tough round next. They've got it against the Miami Heat. I think the Celtics are going to win this game. I think it's going to be a repeat of last year in terms of result. The Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics played in the finals last year, and the Celtics again went to the finals. I think if the Celtics go through to the finals, I think they really do have a strong chance of winning it, as long as Jayson Tatum does show up. That's going to be a game where Jayson Tatum really does need to show up on the defensive end, because if he does not, the Miami Heat will out-hustle them and outplay them on the defensive end, and everyone else will struggle. So Jayson Tatum needs to turn up. Thank you very much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I really want to hear your thoughts, so please do not hesitate to comment down below. And until next time.